Right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Motor City Metrics podcast. We have the whole crew here on a Monday night. Uper, Chris, Raj, and myself talking some Tigers today. We're going to talk about the Mariners series and preview the 2-game set against the Pirates. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat. And if you want to, you guys can leave a super chat. And at the end of the podcast, we will go over those if you have any questions or comments you want to add. But yes, Tigers dropped 2 out of 3 to the Mariners. Offense struggled a bit.
Oh, we do have a sounder, by the way. If you do send a super chat in, we do have a sounder for it.
Nice.
Exquisite.
Okay.
So because we have another one, but I saved that for Sunday night. But anyway, continue.
Yes. Well, thank you all for subscribing and checking out the podcast. You can find the podcast on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it at. But yeah, if we want to talk about our takeaways, I'm going to start with Mr. Uper down there. Uper, what are you thinking about that series against Seattle?
Well, it's a series, I got to watch quite a bit of it. My takeaway is I think the Mariners have a chance to be really good. I think eventually they're going to hit some kind of stride this summer and win a whole lot of ball games. That pitching staff, we didn't even get to see George Kirby. He's shutting out the Red Sox tonight through 6 innings last I looked. So I was pretty impressed with the Mariners overall. It was good to see the Tigers fight back and fall behind early on Sunday and come back and win that game. It showed that they were in it for the fight, and they got things done. With Baddoo, that double, that was a great swing by him. That was pretty impressive. So that was kind of the fun moment of the day for me. Maton coming through with the clutch hit by pitch was all right too. So it was good that they salvaged one.
Sorry.
Okay.
I heard people laughing.
Yes. I'm sorry. Sorry, Uper. What were you saying?
Oh, no, it's that was it. I'm good.
Gotcha. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate weekend for the starting pitching. Boyd obviously was disastrous. Wentz couldn't do a whole lot, but the bullpen pulled through, and it was nice to see some of that fight from the offensive side of the things on Sunday. And really, I think they came into that series, I think, with a game plan. It wasn't necessarily bad. People were getting really frustrated on Saturday night by how quick the outs were, but they came in there expecting to see a lot of fastballs from Bryce Miller because that's what he's thrown so far this year, and he mixed everything up on them. But they still they didn't strike out a ton. It wasn't like they were getting dominated. They just weren't making hard contact or contact in the right way. And sometimes that's just one of those things that happens. It's a young starter with some kind of elite stuff, if you will, and he just kind of perplexed them. So that was a bummer. But overall, I think to your point, that is a good team. We talked about it on Thursday, and the offense have been disappointing so far, but those are a bunch of good hitters on that team. We saw Julio Rodriguez break out kind of in a big way in the first game. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad they were able to salvage one game. It's a bummer to lose a series, but not the end of the world.
And Mr. Rogelio, what did you see in the series against Seattle?
I saw Alex Faedo continue his good pitching that he had down in Toledo. Some of the numbers might not indicate that, but I think after he got his footing, he was working on reworking his mechanics, because in spring training he had a terrible spring, but down in Toledo he started locating his fastball better, getting better action on his slider, and he came through to a pretty quality start on Saturday despite the loss. The 2 home runs do hurt a little bit, but still, nevertheless, between him and Akil Baddoo, which there was a question about Baddoo skipping a question from Evan Petzold. We'll address that here shortly. But overall, I think the not get swept by the Mariners, I'll take that any day, because as Uper said, and he's astutely correct, Mariners are damn good. This is a team that out west, where with Houston having Altuve, who's currently on rehab assignment right now, Seattle has been taken. I'm surprised Seattle hasn't taken more advantage of it, but this is a team that I think you give them a trade. How they are with their DePito or
DePoto.
DePoto. Yeah.
DePoto. he's going to make a move at the trade deadline to make his team better.
Yeah.
And he is going to address that. And somehow, some way he'll swindle somebody. So, but yeah, Seattle, I thought Seattle was one of the better teams they played this year. And they still they took 1 out of 3.
I'm sorry. I'm going to talk over you. That lineup is just so interesting to me that, you keep going guy after guy, like, oh, he can hurt you. Then the next guy, oh, well, he can hurt you, as opposed to what we watch with the Tigers every night. Like, well, somebody might hurt you occasionally once a week. There's just, Teoscar Hernandez, Jared Kelenic, Rodriguez, even Cal Raleigh, who has 2 massive bombs tonight in Fenway Park for home runs. They just keep throwing Crawford. They just keep throwing guys up there that can do damage. And I think at some point this summer, they go on a run and win 15 out of 19 and do some damage in that Western Division.
Well, that just reminded me of I don't remember what it was at Saturday night when Kelenic hit the home run, and who else? There was another big home run. I think that was Saturday night, right? So the Faedo start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a game where I think the Tigers had 3 barrels in that game: Green, Torkelson, and Ibanez, and they were all outs. Meanwhile, Seattle had 1, I think, and managed to get 2 home runs. It's just like, that's just kind of the luck of it, right? Like the Green and Torque both squared up a ball really well. It just happened to be in the wrong part, and Kelenic just kind of tucked one in the foul pole. It's just luck of the draw.
Yeah, I kind of described the Mariners as like a sleeping giant in a way, and their offense wasn't too crazy, but I don't know. My main takeaway was just the Tigers pitching really seemed to struggle against the Mariners. Obviously, Matt Boyd, Joey Wentz really struggled. What did you guys kind of see out of and Alex Fideo as well? I know we want to talk about him. What did you guys see out of those 3 in particular? Boyd obviously really struggling with his command. Joey Wentz couldn't get through 3 innings, and then Fideo, I think, is kind of looked like a different pitcher this year. What is your guys' kind of thoughts on, their 3 starts and what we could see from them moving forward?
Well, because this actually answers a question in the chat, which says, is any other starting pitcher in Toledo that can take Wentz's spot? The answer is no. No. I mean, Reese Olson is struggling still with command right now. And yeah, that's right. Uper saw him live. So yeah, Uper can attest to that. Oof. And yeah. And I still think he has a reliever risk, but even down in AA, I'm not going to, this might sound a little of a stretch, but if Ty Madden continues to pitch well, it wouldn't surprise me if you see Ty Madden here by the end of the year. Honestly.
Oh, I agree.
It's Madden pitched this week against the Flying Squirrels, 5 innings, 1 hit. I think he had 7 strikeouts. Brett Hurler, I think, also might fit in that category, but I still think he's too much of a soft toss and lefty to get to major leagues. I know, Chris, you might disagree with me on that, but honestly, there is nobody down in Toledo that can solve the rotation problem right now. Nobody. And you have Tarek School coming back, so you could, in theory, replace Scoop, like do that healthy thing. Oh, you have a healthy pitcher, and that counts to the trade. That always that Pollyanna point of view you always hear sometimes, but no, I think the answer lies in somewhere in Erie. I think if Ty Madden continues to pitch the way he is right now, Erie's at a 5-inning limit right now. But Chris, I don't know about you, but that's my theory about that. At least Madden or Brett or Hurdler.
Yeah, well, you talked about they've got Gunther.
That's right. Sean Gunther's down in Lakeland. I forgot about that. Yeah, good call.
On the rehab path, but yeah, right. I mean, he only pitched 1 inning the other day, right? So he's probably looking at another month.
Yeah, 2 1-inning start. He was the opener, in other words.
So they may be planning on him being a bullpen guy, but with Alex Faedo, I mean, what we saw is kind of who he's been at times. When when his slider is on, it's a plus pitch. It befuddles hitters. They can't make contact with it really unless he leaves it over the heart of the plate. But the changeup and the fastball are just kind of average, and he's always going to have home run problems. He always has. It's kind of another Matthew Boyd situation where, like, if that slider's working, he's got strikeouts. If it's not, he's in trouble. And he pitched well. That slider was great, but it's still 2 home runs. And you'd like to be able to score more than 3 runs, but in that instance, it was not enough. But yeah, I mean, I think it's nice that he went out there and gave him some innings. That's what they want. That's why they sent Turnbull down. We can discuss that. You look at the WAR. You go ahead and look at Tigers' WAR, and who's the worst pitcher? It's Spencer Turnbull. He wasn't playing well, so they wanted somebody to give them more innings, and Fido did that. I don't know if I trust him yet to be able to do that every 5th day. But I certainly, give him a couple more starts after that one.
Yeah, I know, Uper, you were down to see the Mud Hens. What else did you see down there? Any takeaways you had?
Well, just to verify what Rod was talking about, the pitching staff is just brutal. I mean, there's just no way around it. It's hard to envision a major league arm out of that bunch, other than maybe Brendan White, but that's a reliever. The starters were all bad. The ones I saw, nobody impressed. Reese Olson started out, he was throwing 97 in the first inning. I go, oh, okay, that looks pretty cool. But by the third inning, he was down to 93, 94. He doesn't maintain that velocity very long. And he was really all over the. He wasn't in the strike zone a lot. Walked some guys, just didn't look the part. Maybe that guy in the first inning who was throwing bullets at 97 could become a reliever and become a useful arm. I think that's probably his path to the big leagues. Otherwise, that team is Meadows and Malloy and not much Joy. That's kind of where we are. So I was there to watch those two guys. They were fun to watch. My opinion on Malloy, and again, I saw him 3 times, so don't call me as an expert on Justin Henry Malloy. But just looking at him, he has kind of that same body type as Justin Upton. He has some of the same skills and characteristics of a Kevin Youkilis if we really dream big. And I'm glad I got to see him get 6 hits and a home run in the 3 games I saw, because I don't want to judge this off of him going 0 for 5 and saying, oh, he sucks. Okay. I saw him have some good results, but the first 2 days it was all ground balls. They went for hits and that was fine, but I wasn't too stoked about that. But then I got to see him elevate a couple, and including the home run, which was a bomb. That was good to see. He works the count. He got a couple of walks. He walked 3 times here yesterday in the game I didn't see. If you want to dream of him being Kevin Youkilis, I think you can. Is he more likely going to be like an average starter? Yes, I think that's probably where we'll be. I don't think, a lot of fans think he's going to come in and jumpstart the Tiger offense or give them some help. I think if he does get called up in the next couple months, I think there's going to be a long adjustment phase. I mean, you got to remember, Kevin Youkilis took a couple of years before he became Kevin Youkilis. Okay, he was kind of just a guy for a while. And I think Malloy can be a starter. I just don't know when. And if they want to wait a while, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. And then one other takeaway I had from the Mariners series is obviously the bullpen, I feel like, has been pretty taxed. They pitched 6 innings on Sunday. They've been relied on pretty heavily. And I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on the bullpen, how they performed so far throughout the season. And if you're a little bit worried on the mileage that they could have, in the months to come with the Tigers not really getting a lot of length out of their starting pitchers. Should we be a little concerned with this bullpen moving forward?
I always worry about bullpens breaking down in August and September. It seems to happen to a lot of guys. And we've seen kind of the limitations of a guy like Mason Englert, who knows how to pitch and is really guts things out, but he doesn't. There are times when he just doesn't have a put away pitch, and guys just there's that Cardinals game where they just, what was like a 12 pitch at bat, finally got the out, and the next pitch home run. So that, we don't know exactly how much they're going to get out of him. Feels like Taylor Alexander isn't pitching at all these days. I don't know what it is, but he seems like they're missing some innings from him. But I will say this: the one thing they do seem to have at Toledo is some interesting bullpen arms. Not necessarily on the 40-man roster right now, but if and when they need to dip into that, they still have Miguel Diaz down there. With Kervin Castro went on the IL the other day, I think, but Brendan White's down there. They have some interesting arms. Reese Olson could be a bullpen guy if they choose to go that route. So I think they'll have some reinforcements in that regard, but it wouldn't shock me if the bullpen does tire relatively soon.
By the way, shout out to Blood Right.
Exquisite.
For the $5. Thank you for the $5, Blood Right. Appreciate it. And yes,
Friend of the podcast.
A friend of the podcast.
I thought Wentz's struggle, it was nice for Hinch that they had today off. He was able to get him out of there in the 3rd inning before that game got away from them. And go to the bullpen, and the bullpen did the job for him. But if today hadn't been a day off, I wonder if he would have tried to milk Wentz a little bit farther. But it worked out really nice. But that's it's the game of inches. If Jonathan Scope can snare that bullet and turn a double play, the game is 1-0 instead of 3-0, and maybe Wentz keeps going. So that's kind of killed his outing. He went downhill quick after that play.
And yeah, you want more from Wentz. You kind of need more from Wentz. But it's also, you got to remember he's got like 15 big league starts, right? He's still a really young pitcher, still figuring things out. It's been kind of a roller coaster for him. When he's on, he looks good.
Yeah.
And other times it doesn't look so good. What you absolutely need more from Matthew Boyd. You paid him $10 million to be, I don't know, at least a number 3, number 4 starter in your rotation, not a number 3 starter overall. And you need him to not go out there and soil the bed. So they need more from him in the future. It's been great. I feel fairly confident that their 2 best pitchers going right now are pitching in this series against Pittsburgh. You have to feel good about that coming into the series, but you're only as good as your next start.
Yeah. And Raj, did you have any thoughts on the bullpen?
Now to add what Chris was saying and you were saying, they had some reinforcements, and we saw Castro when I saw him get hurt. It was last week, so they waited a while before they put him on the IL. But Miguel Diaz is pitching better as of late, but still, I don't think Miguel Diaz is going to be a long-term solution. And we're looking at Tyler Holton. I'll be honest, was not expecting very much, but he's been effective, and he's actually pitching better than Tyler Alexander. And so, at some point, you have to kind of consider what they're going to do with a guy like a guy like Austin Bergner, who had 8 strikeouts and 4 innings of work, no hit work in Iowa, and he's been pitching pretty solid all year, minus I think 1 bad relief appearance. But either way, I think what they're going to do is continue to the guys like Sam Clay they've just signed, and Heath Embry, all these arms they've been signing. You'll see them at some point to give the bullpen some relief. I think that's why they've been going after these guys like that.
And Freddie Pacheco will eventually come off the IL.
Oh yeah, he's pitching. Good call, Chris. He's pitching bullpen, I think, this week.
And he's a guy with a big arm. It's he hasn't had as much success as you would expect out of a big arm, but it's certainly something to work with there.
Yeah, and again, one of those stupid things that the Cardinal way messed up there, because there's a lot of potential in that arm, and he was at one point like a top 15 prospect in their system, and they're just like, mm-hmm. So I think Chris, you said I think you were saying that they probably thought he was going to waivers unclaimed, and the Tigers pounced on that.
Yeah, well, he was injured, so they thought that they could probably sneak him through, and a team wouldn't bother with him. And the Tigers are like, we'll take him, and then we'll put him on the 60-day. So I was like, all right, well, good work. We'll see how it goes. They've actually done pretty good work with that level of acquisition so far. Case in point, Zach McKinstry, Andy Ibanez, Tyler Holton. They've performed well. Unfortunately right now it's the Maton Vierling acquisition that's not working out terribly well. And that's one of those things where, to your point, you were talking about Malloy a little bit, and fans, everybody wants Malloy up. And what that amounts to is you're either going to have to get rid of Jonathan Scope, which would probably be the move, I think, given the way that some of the other guys are playing. But you're also, if you do that, you're also kind of, you're not necessarily saying goodbye to Nick Maton, but you're going to drastically reduce his playing time. And it's like, when do they want to give up on him? Because it's only like 125 plate appearances for him. And the first 40, 50 were great. It's the last 80 have been pretty bad. It's like, who's the real player? Is he the guy we saw in spring training in the first part of the season? Is it really an issue where he just can't hit any kind of breaking ball and they're just going to do that until he withers away and dies? It could be, but I don't know how long. Like I said, if they bring up Malloy, Maton's playing time, might as well send him to AAA basically, because he's not going to play much. So I just don't know when they want to make that decision.
Yeah. And if Raj, is the Cardinal way part of the drinking game?
Yes, because now we're gonna call it the crappy way. That's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be the the reason why I choose is because I've been writing a lot of prospect stuff for Fansided, and I'm trying to, and also because we're talking about trade possibilities and Tigers and Eduardo Rodriguez and everything. But earlier I was talking to Robert Murray, who was one of the national writers over at Fansided, and I just said something like, man, the Cardinal way, and he just like, wait, you don't like the Cardinal way? I'm like, nope. And we just had a good laugh over it. So I showed him this, but yeah. So sorry, St. Louis fans, but I just made that I made this for the Discord. I'm not sharing it on Twitter because I don't want St. Louis fans. There's a lot of good St. Louis fans out there. Actually, for the record, I like a lot of the Cardinals, but just the propaganda behind the Cardinal way just seems it's irritating to me because also, admittedly, I'm a little jealous because the Tigers try to do the same thing the Tiger way, and there's like, no, or the Dodger way. I mean, the Dodgers, you know what? They don't ram it down the throat as much as they do about the Cardinal way, quote unquote.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the Astro and Tampa Bay way. I don't know if that's a thing, but I think they got a pretty good thing going.
Yeah.
Yes. Raj, you were mentioned today in a fan-sided piece by the Cardinal guy.
Oh, what did he say?
Well, he just mentioned were talking about Eduardo Rodriguez, and then he put together a Eduardo Rodriguez trade idea. I'd sign up for in a minute. He said Matthew Liberatore and Tyler O'Neill for Eduardo Rodriguez. That to me would be an instant yes. You just do it. I don't think the Cardinals would ever do that. I don't think there's a chance.
Yeah,
but I loved reading it.
I want to dream. I want to dream a world where Mason Wynn becomes a Tiger. I want to dream that world. That's the dream. That's a Roger. You're insane dream, and I'm fine with it.
I would probably I like Mason Wynn, but I'd rather have Liberatore and O'Neill. Those guys have actually
that's true.
Like O'Neill has done it, but just that to me that illustrates one point that we can't quite figure into the trade market, which is the desperation level. If you're a Cardinals fan and you see this offense right now, you see and Arenado seems to have caught fire. Goldschmidt is still a very good player. You see a team that's seemingly poised to win, but is not performing. They need pitching. And this is not a situation where they're going to blow it up and trade everybody off. They want to compete. So they are desperate. And if they have guys who they don't think can help them this year, maybe they'll overpay for a guy who can just to secure him. That's a little bit like, not to get back to Malloy, but 1 year of Joe Jimenez for a potential everyday third baseman doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you're a World Series contender and you feel like you don't have a place for this potential everyday third baseman and you do need another bullpen arm. So it's a desperation level, and I do think the Cardinals are pretty desperate right now. So that would be a fun deal. I don't know if and when the Tigers will start entertaining those thoughts, but probably another month or two.
Over the weekend, I've been home a lot, and I've been thinking about stuff I've said in the past, and I'm really coming around to the idea that maybe it's unrealistic, but the Tigers should probably find a way to keep Eduardo Rodriguez. Let's face it. I've talked about it enough times. They have the money. If they want to commit, they could do it. And he has a pretty good injury history. He answers the bell most of the time. He had his personal issues last year. I don't count that, but other than that, he's a reliable guy. It's always hard though to commit when you're in the middle of an historic streak like this, because we know he's not going to pitch this well forever, right? So what are you really buying? That is the only hiccup, the only trepidation I have is that, it looks so wonderful right now. If you commit to it, we'll see what happens. But when it's all said and done, I think they need to decide, hey, we want to build around this guy. He can be a potential pillar of a rotation that we can compete with.
Yeah, I don't know. What comes to mind for me is kind of like the Zach Wheeler deal, because Zach Wheeler was a guy who really didn't break out until he got that big contract, and the Phillies kind of banked on the fact that he was going to be good into his early to mid 30s, and that worked out for them. It's kind of the same thing with Eduardo Rodriguez. Do you think his best pitching days are ahead of him, or are they behind him? But I think the good thing for the Tigers is they have all the leverage in an Eduardo Rodriguez deal, because they can simply just keep him and look to extend him and build around him as a veteran for the future. Like, I think he's a guy that isn't a high velocity guy. I think he could age fairly well for the Tigers and be a pretty effective pitcher into his mid 30s. Yes, we did have a question on Eduardo Rodriguez and trade options. I mean, I feel like we've kind of already gotten into it, so we can kind of just address the question now. Like what kind of players, teams, is there a certain like mold player, like a mold of a player you think Scott Harris is trying to get? Is it a guy that's ready to contribute at the major league level, or is it a guy a couple years away? Is it going to be hitters? Is it going to be pitchers? Like, give me some
Yes.
names, some teams. You guys have any names, any teams for Eduardo Rodriguez?
Personally, the Tigers have enough holes. To me, it doesn't matter. Get talent. They need talent. They need winning baseball players. Okay? I don't care what they do. You know, I mean, you can say, oh, you don't need a first baseman because of Torkelson. Well, maybe you will. I mean, I don't know. Take whoever. I would take the best players they can get. I don't care who they are. I don't care what position they play.
Were you there in Iowa for the Ben Brown start?
Yes. Impressive.
Now, yes.
That guy looked really
So-
good. Yes.
So that's what I like. You know, if the Cubs, I was just like, the Cubs might. They just sent Wisniewski down. They have Hendricks coming back up, but maybe at some point Smiley breaks. They want a lefty. They're playing better than we thought. Eduardo Rodriguez, give me Ben Brown and Chris Morrill. Throw him in there. And
Sure.
have some fun. Those are not like top 100 prospects, but they're talented guys.
Oh, Ben Brown, he was rattling off 96 miles of power fastballs like a metronome into the 5th inning. He, unlike Olson, maintained velocity almost exact the whole way. He was really around the zone. Change up, just flummoxed a couple guys. Very, very impressive. He was the best pitcher I saw this week.
You probably watched that game, a lot of it on TV, and I was just like, who is this guy? And then Chris filled me in. They got him from the Phillies, but he looked, dominant. Toledo had no chance against them. The only person that did anything of substance was Malloy.
Ground ball single.
This is one of those times, not to go off on a side tangent here, but one of the things we were discussing earlier today was about kind of the uselessness of top 100 pitching prospects. Some of them come up and are good, right? But other guys, like Grayson Rodriguez was a top 100, top 10 prospect forever. He got blasted today. A lot of the pitchers who come up and have success are guys who just rocket up to the majors out of nowhere before the prospect list can even reflect it. And I was talking about Spencer Strider. Mason Miller, the kid from the A's, was not a top 100. Bryce Miller, who we just saw, he was 100th heading into the season for Baseball America. Did that look like the 100th prospect in baseball on Saturday? It's some of these dudes. It clicks for them and they're gone. Like Walker Buehler was kind of that way. I think I do think he was ranked pretty highly right before he came to the big leagues. But there's some guys that just take off, and I don't know. Maybe Ben Brown wouldn't do something like that in the big leagues. But that's the sort of trade where they get a guy and people go, he's not even a top 100 prospect, and you go, yes, it doesn't matter. Look at him.
Yeah.
So anyway, tangent over.
Yeah, I don't know. I looked at, obviously, the Cardinals. I think they're the team that's been rumored the most. They have Dylan Carlson and Alec Burleson, two guys that are, I think, 24 years old. Both of them are contributing at the major league level. Maybe the Cardinals would trade from a strength of a place of strength. Another team I was looking at was the Astros. We know Luis Garcia went down this season with injury. Looking at their top prospects, Drew Gilbert, Jacob Melton, and Colin Barber, all 22 years old, all outfielders. I don't know if the Astros are going to be able to keep all three of those and find a spot for them in their outfield. They still have Kyle Tucker. So maybe one of those guys are expendable if the Astros want to make a trade for a frontline starter. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. Chris, did you have something?
No, sorry, I was just rubbing my hands together.
I
Like
thought you were waving.
The good news is with all those teams you list, John, is the Tigers can, if they put him out there, probably drum up a market for him. Some bidding instead of just having to focus on one customer. And that's to their advantage if that happens, because we can make a plausible reason why a lot of people would need Rodriguez, and if he keeps having a sub 2 ERA, everyone's going to want him. So how long can he maintain this incredible streak is probably the thing to consider. I mean, when does the clock hit midnight on him?
Yeah, or a team like another team that I like is the Brewers because they have a guy down in AA, Carlos Rodriguez. So Rodriguez for Rodriguez. he's off to he's put up some pretty good numbers, and I haven't really, just outside of seeing some of his numbers, I know that he is one of the best starters down in AA in the Southern League, posting a ERA of 1.88, FIP of 2.78, and I believe he's in the league. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. That's the league in Buxy? That's the hitter friendly league, right?
The Southern League?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it's one of the. It's not as big as the Pacific Coast League, but there are some. Is it San Antonio's down there? I think in the Southern League, or maybe that's the Texas League. I don't know. I get confused by all the state, but yeah, pitching well in. Basically, if you're pitching well outside of the Midwest League or the Florida State League, then you're interesting. Because,
yeah, I mean, that's what Mason Eckler, that's a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Stan heard on the Evan Petzold podcast with our old friend of the show, well, the friend to three of the four people, maybe two of the four of the people in the show, Mark Gurash. Evan mentioned that Tyler O'Neill for Spencer Turnbull, and they're both Boris clients, and that makes a lot of sense. Tyler O'Neill, for whatever reason, they don't like him in St. Louis. It is bizarre how they've treated Tyler O'Neill. I mean, I know he was a little banged up, but it just seems like he can't do anything right, even though he's done. And this is a guy who I've said that I've been on a Tyler O'Neill bandwagon. I started that training 3 years ago because of his defensive metrics, and he put together a pretty good offensive season. So if they threw in Tyler O'Neill, and again, I think a pitching prospect in there, because I think Detroit still needs another starter or two in their system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with it. I mean, again, I want Detroit. Detroit's not, to me, and from what I know and what I hear, Detroit's not going to. They're going to wait till the last possible minute to make a trade. They're going to wait. They're not going to make a trade right now. They're going to see how they are as a trade deadline. This team in a crappy division is being competitive. I mean, again, you have the Royals, you have the White Sox. You haven't even played the only division opponent you've played is you start playing the Twins next week. That's it. They've been playing Cleveland. So I like to see how they shape up against, I'm sure the team wants to see how they shape up against some of the division rivals before they make a trade. But yes, blood right. Yes. Quite frankly, yes, I would love to see Eduardo Rodriguez for Marcelo Meyer, but that would be that's one of those trades where it's a fan. That's if you have the game or the MLB The Show game, that you can do that trade and force a trade. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Another team I looked at was the Diamondbacks. They're a team that's been competitive in the NL West. Other than Zach Gallen, they kind of had an inconsistent rotation behind him. So just another option for Eduardo Rodriguez. But yeah, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of teams that are interested in Erod. But if we want to get into the Tigers' next opponent, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're coming to town for a 2-game set. Tigers are having their two best pitchers on the mound as of late. Michael Lorenzen, game 1, Eduardo Rodriguez. Game 2, the Pirates will send Luis Ortiz to the mound. Not familiar with him. And then Rich Hill, who I know pitched against the Tigers last year when he was with the Red Sox, for game 2. For the Pirates, they're a team that struggled in the month of May, had a really surprising month of April. So, Yooper, I want to get your thoughts on the Pirates and Tigers series. Is it realistic to expect 2 wins out of this series, or what do you think we could see from the Pirates coming into Comerica?
Oh, Tigers could easily win 2 games. Yeah. The Pirates have fallen on hard times, probably a little bit predictable. When you look at that roster, I mean, they were 18-8, and everybody was like, hey, look at the Pirates. And they played well, don't get me wrong. But now, I think they're 2-8 in their last 10, maybe 5-10 of their last 15. So they're struggling. So the Tigers could certainly pounce on them for a couple wins. This Ortiz fellow is making his second start of the year. So he's a young pitcher. And then Rich Hill, I mean, who knows? I mean, certainly he has the soft stuff. He could tantalize some of the Tiger hitters and drive them nuts, or he may be one of those days where he's hanging every curve in the zone. We'll just have to see. But I think the biggest thing is the Tigers are missing Mitch Keller. And that's always a plus because he's their best guy. So, sure, they can win a couple games.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there. Luis Ortiz is a prospect. He's a very interesting prospect, but a lot of people think he might end up in the bullpen because everything's hard. He averages 97 with a fastball. changeups like 90, 91, sliders like 87, 88. So they're just geared up for some hard stuff, and that's actually the Tigers generally do pretty well against guys like that, even if it's got a wrinkle on it. Then you got Rich Hill, whose fastball is 87 miles per hour, and fortunately one of the two players in Major League Baseball who's older than me still, which makes me happy. But yeah, I mean, it traditionally speaking, you would expect the Tigers to get to the guy who throws harder and struggle against the guy who throws the soft stuff. But I do like the pitch matchups. And the Pirates, as you talked about, like the last 2 weeks, their offense has been non-existent. They were kind of carried early on by Jack Sawinski and Connor Joe. And, these are guys who have interesting tools, but not consistent track records. And now their best player is probably Andrew McCutchen, which, he's a great player, but at the tail end of his career, so you wouldn't expect a ton from him there. I don't know if necessarily he might catch something from Erod and send it over the wall, but yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup for the Tigers. It's just, you got to go out there and play and execute still.
Yeah, I think for the Pirates, I was looking at some stats for them in the month of May. They're hitting like 180 as a team with like a 550 OPS, which I think this is going to be a game where series that we might not see a lot of runs scored. The Tigers offense kind of came back down to earth against the Mariners, only had one home run in that 3-game series. But for you, Raj, what are you expecting out of this series? What can we see from the Pirates coming into Comerica?
Well, the Pirates started playing people that are good, and they got swept by the Rays. They got swept by Toronto. I mean, they got their asses kicked in Toronto. And I mean, if you look at their April schedule, they played the Reds, White Sox, both the Red Sox and White Sox, the Reds. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Astros. They played the Cardinals when they were struggling. They swept the Rockies. Yay. But, and then you play the Nationals. And so, yeah, of course, you're going to have a pretty good record when you face those teams. But again, they lose at home to the Rockies 10-1 last week, but then against the Orioles just look listless. I mean, they're shut out back-to-back games. They're coming into the series. They haven't scored a run since Friday night, so they're going to try to be very aggressive early tomorrow. But I think the Pirates are showing what they are, which is I think they're a good team, but they're not their record what they are. And again, it's a matter of strength of schedule. The Tigers had the opposite. Tigers had a jail sex type of schedule where the Pirates were really kind of like, government jail easy schedule kind of thing. So
consensual jail sex.
Yeah, consensual jail sex. Thank you, Chris. Yes.
Can we monetize that?
The Bucks
You pay with cigarettes.
Yeah. The Bucks are getting boo food right now.
But yeah, I don't know. It's the Tigers. I mean, Tigers fans are generally excited, I think, right now about the team playing better than we expected, and it's still like among the bottom 5 offenses in baseball. But considering who they were playing and some of the teams they saw, that is their reason for optimism. Now you just gotta go beat the teams you should beat, and the Pirates actually have a plus run differential right now. The Tigers do not, but I think, you look at who's been playing better over the last 2 weeks. It's certainly the Tigers. So you got to go win those games, and then you got to go take care of business against Washington, right?
Yeah, 3 games against Washington after that. So hopefully the Tigers can reach 500. That'd be nice to see. We had a conversation on the last podcast about if they would finish the month of May at or above 500, and I think me, Chris, and Cameron all said they would. But yeah, that's all we have for the Pirates. Raj, I know I'm hosting, but do you want to do the season grades, or do you want to do a little teaser for Thursday? Season grades? All right. So we are, I think it's 39 games into the season, about the 40 mark.
Yeah, like a real quick grade thing. We're not going to spend too much time on it because I want to do an article on it. But yeah, we can tease a little bit about Thursday too. But yeah, we'll do quick grades. But as you were, John, go ahead.
Yeah. Chris, so 39 games in, give us your grade for the Tigers season so far.
Oh, boy. Well, I thought they would win about 70 games. I think they're on pace for about 72. So that's a C plus B minus for me, I guess. I've been The offense has still been struggling. It's nice to see the three big bats come together the last couple of weeks to produce. Erod has obviously been great, better than I expected. Lorenzen has been better than I expected. Other than that, the bullpen's been better than I expected. So, yeah, I mean, it's been pleasantly good. It's not an A plus, not an A to me, but C plus B minus. Defense has been good. Yeah, better than I thought.
All right, Uper.
Well, if we go with C as an average team, right? They're a below average team. So I got them C minus, D plus, somewhere in there. There are some positives, and there's always going to be positives. Even the worst teams have some positives. So it's great fun to watch Rodriguez pitch. It's been good to see Riley Green take some steps forward the last couple weeks. But overall, again, it's a sad sack offense. It's a pitching staff that's, they're held together by, baling wire. Will they stick it out? Who knows? So yeah, if the young guys come through within the second half, they can raise that grade. But I gotta say about a D plus right now.
All right, Raj.
I can't believe I'm going to be the optimist here out of all. Well, technically, I'm still kind of that way. But honestly, I give him a B, just over a B minus. And I'll tell you why. One, the start of the season was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. But this team has shown, comparatively speaking, to last year, a lot more character in terms of fighting back, getting into the games, and getting stuff from Zach McKinstry, who we all thought was not going to do much. Again, you're batting under 100 when you get somebody from spring training, you're not expecting much. And with the strikeout numbers the way they are. And Chris Fetter deserves an Academy Award for what he's done with the bullpen. I mean, maybe an Academy Award. I don't know. He deserves a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Like, what he's been really, to me, done with the bullpen, with the emergence of Lang and Foley, that's masterclass right there. I mean, to me, Lang has cut down his walks. He's been just lights out. Foley, same thing. And like Mason Engler, if you would have told me that Mason Engler would be trusting these situations, and look at his numbers against high leverage situations, he does extremely well. And they've been able to maximize his changeup and his slider. So I think I understand why Uper is being tough, because quite frankly, yes, there are some times that this offense looks bad and the defense looks a little sloppy at times early on. But if the first 2 weeks of April didn't happen, this team, it'd be a different story. But again, we can't change that. But out of all the baseball I've watched so far in AL Central, the Tigers baseball has actually been somewhat tolerable. You look at the White Sox, you look at that whole crap show right now where, Luis Roberts and all that too. I mean, there's such a sham everywhere else. I mean, outside of the Turnbull stuff, which is Turnbull drama, which is justified, I think the Tigers have overcome quite a bit. And so, to me, if they were still playing the way they were before, I would be a little harder. But I don't know. They took a game out of Seattle, which I did not expect them to do, because Seattle looked really good Friday and Saturday. But overall, the bullpen is, again, Chris Fetter is a damn genius. Chris Fetter should have, how they have all those Willie Horton statues out there. Chris Fetter should have his own statue. It's just him like this, just like hands folded like this, just smiling. Because he doesn't say much anyways. When you see him, when I saw him in Lakeland when it was his family, he's just a quiet guy anyway. But you know what? It's just I want him out there, or even him with like a clipboard like this going, or like just with a thumbs up. Chris Fetter with a thumbs up. That would be fine by me, because that guy, out of all the pitching, out of any pitching coach I've ever seen, I mean, Roger Craig gets a lot of credit for the little bit of split finger fastball, Jack Morris, Dan Petrie in '84. Chris Fetter has done more, because he's done more with less. So anyway.
Yeah, I'd be right there with you, Raj. I'd probably give him a B. Like, there's been ups and downs, surprises and disappointments throughout the major league roster. The only thing I would add, though, is why my grade isn't higher is the minor leagues. I feel like some players down in the minors have been a little disappointing, like Parker Meadows, Andre Lipsius, Wilmer Flores, Reese Olson, Ty Madden, all really haven't, picked up what they did last season and improved on that. So that's why my grade would be a little bit lower, is because just looking at the organization as a whole, some guys that we hoped would continue to develop kind of have struggled a little bit.
Now, if you're going to throw that into the mix, I disagree with you on Parker Meadows and Andre Lipsius, because it was, again, I know spring training, you have to erase spring training from your mind. Parker Meadows, the reason why he's down, he didn't start the team this year down with the majors, is because he can't hit lefties. And he still can't hit lefties. And Lipsius goes through these bouts where he will be very good for a while, and then he just goes into the toilet for a little bit, and then he comes back up.
Well, he's in there now.
Yeah, he's in there now. He is way in there right now. He's under batting almost 150 in the last couple of weeks. But as far as like Ty Madden goes, Ty Madden's actually improved from last year to me. And there's been signs of more swing and miss stuff. You gotten surprises from, Cole Keefe's he's struggling right now, but he's still doing pretty well. Roberto Campos, Chris and I have we had a Roberto Campos poster be right here, right in front of me. Roberto Campos is the truth. It's been disappointing with Christian Santana and Lakeland. Don't even get me started on Lakeland. Lakeland's a mess. But nevertheless, guys like Justice Bigby, who won the Midwest Player of the Week award, have been performing well. They've been getting some really good performances from Dylan Dingler. But Dingler, glad you mentioned him, Harrison. Dingler is back to struggling a little bit this week, but still, the upside's there. The upside is there, and hopefully he just picks it back up this week when they go to Harrisburg to take on the Senators. But I've been a big fan of some of the guys you may not have heard of, like Big B or Corey Joyce. Corey Joyce has been hitting the ball pretty well in Toledo. Another story, too, you can talk about among the pitchers. I don't know about you, Chris, but I like Dario Gardea's numbers. I looked at him earlier today. He's pitching better since he got off the IL as of late. And then West Michigan, too. West Michigan's got a couple of arms down there. The West Michigan's they have the best run differential in Midwest League, and they're just a game back of the Great Lakes Loons. So there's a lot to like in West Michigan right now. It's just a total team effort there. A lot of guys, Danny Soretti's Chase Young has been hitting better. He batted over 300 this week. So there's a couple of things you can hang on the system for that are positives.
Yeah, it seems that three of us are basically grading on a curve, and Yoop is not, which is fine. We're grading. We've been Al Avila. We're grading on the Avila curve. We expected a D. We started with an F, and they've been playing kind of B baseball lately. So we grade on the curve there. But yeah, overall, it's not a good baseball team. They're just not abject failures right now. So we're kind of bumping up the grades. But I understand all the grades that we gave. As far as the minor league system goes, it's just early still. I consider what Roberto Campos is doing this year to be as impressive as any kind of breakout we saw last year. The numbers aren't quite there yet because there's some refinement that needs to be made, but I'm just so impressed with that kid. Even though he had a brutal game on defense when we went and saw him. I think by July, there'll be some other players who are like, I don't know, this guy's kind of interesting. Like basically right now, the breakouts are Campos and Kaider Montero. And Montero, I think, is a guy that will get added to the 40-man roster after the season. So that's some kind of breakout there, if you will.
Good call, Chris. Yeah, good call, Montero. Yeah.
But do any of these guys at the lower level, are they really going to be able to make an impact as like an everyday player for the Tigers? I think like people that have been upset with the farm system, I think they look at that top end talent and none of them have really broken out or taken a step forward. And that's why I think some people might be a little disappointed with the farm system.
And to be fair, they have every right to be, because the Tigers still haven't had a regular starter that have been every regular starter that's above a 2 WAR. And they still haven't done that. And yeah, you have a right to be skeptical. I'm still skeptical. But as far as down in West Michigan, Campos is a good story. Danny Soretti might be a guy that a utility bat someday, like a bench bat, if he continues to progress. Young's got some potential there. And in terms of pitchers down there, too, there could be a number of possibilities there among their pitching staff. And so, I don't know. Lakeland's a different story. Lakeland doesn't look good right now. No, but honestly, Chris, I'm trying my hardest not to be a negative or not to be a dick about Lakeland, but it's Troy Melton maybe, but it's right now it's kind of hairy.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, maybe somebody will break out down there. But no, I will just revert back to Campos. Campos is a different player than I expected. The main thing that is standing out to me is he is not swinging and missing in the zone. If you throw pitches in the zone, he's hitting them and hitting them hard. There's a little of them are, a little too much on the ground, but he's hitting a lot of line drives and hitting with a lot of power, and he's not overly aggressive outside. He doesn't chase a ton. He's just got a lot better plate discipline than I expected. And to me, that's a great start. And if he continues that way, he's going to refine it further and start to pick up on the balls so that he can really drive and the ones that he can leave alone. And I mean, I think he's got everyday corner outfielder upside. Honestly, I mean, there's no need to rush him, but if he produces this year, it wouldn't shock me if he gets like an August call up to Double-A when he's barely 20 years old. So I've been really impressed with him. We bumped him up to 5 on our top 25 prospect list, I think, based on the first couple weeks. But yeah, beyond that, it's tough. It's tough. I don't see anybody in the system who projects as like, an above average regular. We love Keith's bat. We like Malloy's bat. We like Parker Meadows. Those are all interesting guys. But yeah, I mean, nobody has that like Riley Green, like, hey, if it works, he's an all-star MVP candidate level stuff right now.
Before I forget, I did write today about Trey Cruz, because Trey Cruz numbers are interesting because he is hitting for a lot more power, and he's cut back on even trying to pull the ball. He's been going up the center more, and he's been much more aggressive in the strike zone. Trey Cruz is, I think, second or third in the system in home runs, and he's been quietly having a good year. A lot of those mistakes he was making before, he's adjusting to Double-A pretty well. So Trey Cruz, again, is he a regular? I don't know, but it's just another guy to keep your eye on.
All right. Oop, jabs open, Chris.
Well, something is, and I don't. We'll talk about it off air.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Do we have anything else to add though? Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Did Nick Spillane have a question?
Yeah, it was the Erod question. We kind of.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
There was a Ninja Bees had a question for us too, I think, on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, I can pull that up.
And there are a bunch of questions in here in the side chat.
Yeah, we always get in.
Somebody asked about Malloy's splits, how he hits against right-handers. I actually think he probably hits better against right-handers than left-handers. At least I'm checking right now. Yeah. So he has a 1029 OPS and an 821 against lefties, 1029 against righties. Because I've talked about it before. The weird thing about Malloy, his weakness seems to be breaking balls on the inside third and then fastballs away. And that's not something like breaking balls from a right-hander, basically front door sliders, which is a very rare pitch. You don't see that a ton.
The home run that he hit yesterday was almost kind of an awkward-looking swing. He kind of lurched out. He went out and got it and kind of just flicked his wrists, and he pulled it over the left field wall.
It was kind of a softball swing in a way. Kind of like
and it was a bit of a fence scraper, and that's fine. But I thought it was kind of impressive that he adjusted. You could tell he was kind of fooled, but he went out and got it, and he muscled it over. I also liked that, he hit it off of Hendricks, because Hendricks made him look terrible on Tuesday. He really did. And to come back and get a couple of hits off him a few days later, I thought was a good adjustment against a major leaguer.
Yeah. So I do have the question from Deadly Ninja Beast. So the first question was about the Fangraphs list of the Tigers prospects. Did you guys see that? And he kind of just wanted to know your thoughts and opinions on it.
Yeah, I looked at it today. Did you see it, Did you see it, Raj?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have had Malloy a little higher.
The two takeaways I had, I think basically everybody was in the correct tier for the most part. He didn't have Winsel Perez in his top 34, which I thought was a little bit odd.
Yeah.
Given what we saw from Perez last year and some of his skills. Now he does have some warts, and there's the lingering back issues, which cause an issue there, or some concern. But to not have him, I don't know. I think he's a better prospect than that. And I hate to be so negative, but he had Donnie Sands as like the 21st prospect in the system.
What the
And had
50
him as-
grade hit tool? What kind
yeah,
of
50 grade hit tool.
what?
Well, so that's the thing though. Like if you look at Donnie Sands' performance every year before this year, he's been a hitter. But everything I've seen from him this year looks like a guy who can't hit and won't ever hit. It's a big leg kick. He's off balance. He doesn't seem to hit the ball hard. I don't know what it is. So that one just was confusing to me. But he might have a longer, track record with Donnie Sands. And I don't want to, bury the kid. He doesn't strike me as much of a prospect at all. He's 27 already.
Yeah. I saw him get a double and a walk one night, but it was kind of a lucky double. He kind of forced it down the first baseline. I thought he was half fooled on the pitch, but he snuck it in there and got a double. It really wasn't anything impressive.
No, as far as it was good to see another list too, because I've been looking at. I did an article for Fansided I created like the Fansided 15, which is just taking the MLB pipeline, Baseball America, and doing the averages and doing our own thing. Colt Keith, number one. Hey, you're welcome for being trendsetters because that's what we do. But I had Peyton Graham at number 10 was also kind of where I was like, I don't know about that. And then they had Pacheco. What? Oh, go ahead.
Good. Go. You go ahead.
I was gonna say they had Pacheco at number 4, Freddie Pacheco at number 14. Which, if you think about it, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense because Pacheco is a big arm and he did do well. And he was high up in St. Louis' system, but I haven't seen him, so therefore I wouldn't know where to rank him here. But yeah, the other one I had a problem with was, or not a problem necessarily, maybe where he was ranked at, was Jackson Jobe at number 5. And that's because, again, I'm starting to kind of sour on that, admittedly. So
yeah. Oh, you guys go ahead.
Guys.
Some of the more negative people out there will look at the fact that Freddie Pacheco is number 14 and he's been cut and hurt and say that, well, it doesn't look so good. But I understand there's a skill level there that's more important, but I just find that kind of amusing.
Go ahead, John.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is this is the first time we've had any kind of real scouting report on Raylan Perez, who's a guy that we followed a lot last year because of his really good stat line down in the Dominican Summer League, but it's the Dominican Summer League. It's just stats. We didn't know, and beyond seeing his video clips that he put up on his own Instagram, there's not really any scouting information out there because he was not a high priority international signing, and we don't get to go down and see the Dominican. We can't. We'd love to. We're not allowed to. And the games aren't on TV, so we really had no idea. So it was nice to get that. He basically said he compared him to Workman and Kreidler basically as this kind of a lot of swing and miss, but a very exciting athlete, which was good to hear. And we'll see that. And he also has Abel Bastidas on there, who was one of my kind of breakout guys before the season. He hasn't played, so that kind of makes me feel rough. But it's nice to get a couple other interesting names on there who weren't on our top 25 just because we haven't. Same with Freddie Pacheco. Like we haven't seen him pitch really, and maybe that's a mistake on our part. But just if we haven't seen the guy pitch and don't know what he looks like, it's kind of tough to rank him.
yeah, I you know what, I don't regret that at all. I think that again, by default, by putting somebody because they're up on somebody else's list. I mean, I rather everybody we pretty much have on our list we've seen more than once, and I think that just adds the credibility because you call me you call me an idiot, whatever you want. I don't care. That's fine. But to me, I just think having enough video and enough of us out there versus I saw Pacheco pitch when I get read up on him, and I thought he looked really good. But again, it's AAA Memphis. I mean, he was pitching for, and towards the end of the year, where a lot of those guys are pretty much the season's kind of waving their white flag a little bit. So.
Yeah, I did see a question from Alex in the chat, the MLB Pipelines updated list. I did see that, and I saw Jackson Jobe was left off the top 100. But I know you guys aren't a big fan of them, but that was the one list I did look at.
Well, it's hard to keep somebody on the top 100 when they're a pitcher and they haven't pitched much and they weren't terribly good last year and now they're injured. It's like you got to really have a lot of faith in that guy too. So I don't blame them if he comes back and looks good. Like the reports were, the Tigers were really happy with the way he looked before the season, which was nice. And we saw him make a lot of progress last year. He seemed
Yeah.
to talk the talk. He understood what he needed to do, how to shape his pitches, how to change them to make them most effective. So there's a lot there to like. It kind of wasn't quite there. And now, I mean, back injuries scare me more than just about anything but a shoulder. So, I don't know what to think. If Job comes back and looks good, we'll move him up our list, I think, probably, and other people probably will too. But it's a big if right now.
Yeah. And then the second part to Deadly Ninja Beast question was just about Spencer Turnbull and what his future could hold with the Detroit Tigers. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, I personally think that, I mean, if you're trying to maximize when you're going to be a free agent, I think you're pretty much telling the Tigers, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. So maybe that's my interpretation of it. I could be wrong. And maybe, he is 30. I mean, people do forget that he's not a spring chicken. So, yeah, really, I don't know. Like, it's even the whole situation is just strange. I think he just didn't want to be sent down, and instead they call it, like, he pitched with a neck injury. That's what pitchers do. Pitchers will, until they're physically ranked or pulled out of there, they're not going to want to leave. So, again, I don't know why I understand. If the numbers weren't indicating he was a good pitcher, take the L, I guess. But people have a lot of pride. So there you go.
Yep.
I think fences can always be mended if there's indeed a rift. Okay, and I know some of that seems a little more media generated than Twitter generated than what they actually put out there. Everything can be solved if he pitches better. If he gets healthy and gets his chance and contributes, things will be fine. If he continues to struggle, then they're going to keep playing this up that there's a problem with him. He's a reliever, right? Shouldn't that be where he is? I mean, I think we've seen enough now over the years. He's 30 years old. He's not going to be an every fifth day starter and have any sustained run of success. He would have had it by now. Whether that's through bad luck, injury, poor performance, don't care. It just hasn't happened. I think it's time, he needs to decide what he wants to do for a career in his 30s, and that's probably being an eighth inning reliever.
Yeah, and if they were to want to trade him, it really just wouldn't make sense because his trade value is probably at an all-time low right now. He's not pitching well. He's just coming off Tommy John. Like, it just wouldn't make sense for the Tigers to want to move him because they're just not going to be getting equal value in return, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, we briefly discussed this last night, but I think I see both sides of it. I like I said, he was the worst pitcher on the Tigers right now. Worst starting pitcher. They needed to upgrade. They thought there were some things for him to work on, which is totally understandable. At the same time, like, I'm sure he was not terribly happy about the prospect of pushing back his free agency even another year, which could be will be his only real payday. And who knows what he can get, if he came back and was pitching great, you lose a year, you're talking about losing somewhere between like $5 and $15 million, possibly. You saw Matthew Boyd get $10 million this year, right? So you can get a decent amount of money on a free agent market if you're a solid pitcher. So you obviously want to combat against that. But to Roger's point, yeah, like I think he was probably battling through an injury that could have put him on the IL. Lots of players have injuries that could put them on the IL. I think he probably could have continued pitching without going on the IL, if you will. I think this is kind of a compromise. So it's a way to get him to make those starts in Toledo and make those adjustments that he needs to make without costing him service time. And I'm kind of surprised, and maybe more teams do this, but I'm surprised we don't see it more often. And hopefully he does figure it out and he comes back and pitches well. And yeah, then they could trade him.
Yeah, that'd be my hope too. But yeah, anything else you guys want to add? Raj, have anything for Thursday's show? Any spoilers, teasers, anything else we got?
Just tune in. There you go. 9:00 Thursday. Tune in. We'll be back for previewing the upcoming series against the Nationals and the Jeimer Candelario Revenge Tour. There's just tune in Thursday, and I will be down there tomorrow and Wednesday. It's about time to get off the schneid, you will, and head back and go do some stuff. So, but yeah, I would recommend also going to TigerMinorLeagueReport.com and check out all our great articles that we're posting. I know we have a StatCast article coming out soon. Jerry did a really good job with the Bash Brothers article, so please check that out. I know people were laughing about calling Spencer Trickelson and Riley Green the Bash Brothers, but if you read the article, then you'll see that it's him being objective. So,
all right, and then for our Pistons fans, tomorrow draft lottery. So wish your fellow Piston fans luck. And
if they get host in the
get
pick,
ready.
you know that.
Oh, they're going to get the 5th pick, and they're going to get Jerace Walker, and everybody's going to embrace poor man's beef stew. That's what's going to happen. Enjoy it. You ready?
Yeah, San Antonio's going to get that first pick. San Antonio's like it's kind of like a pop. We got you.
They've got
I don't know.
50% chance. It's basically 50-50 that they're going to hit a top 4 pick or the 5th pick. So coin flip.
Yep, my reaction will be on Twitter tomorrow. I'll either be really happy or really upset. So should be fun though. All right. I think that's all we got for you guys tonight. We'll see you back on Thursday from the crew at Motor City Metrics. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. See you guys in the next one.
See ya.